Harvey County Digital Talk, a program brought to you by Harvey County Digital. Harvey County Digital Talk, where everything we talk about is the only thing you want to know about local matters that matter. We are the only voice for local public community talk. For this episode, we have two sponsors. The first of the two is hands down one of the best places to eat in Harvey County. Genova's Italian Restaurant is located at 1021 Washington Road in Newton and is open Tuesday through Saturday 11 to 8, Sundays 11 to 2, but they're closed on Mondays. If you're like me and absolutely love Italian food, Genova's is a place for you. Never been and don't know what to try? Ask for my favorite, which happens to be the chef's favorite, and enjoy a wonderful local dining experience. Go see Rosie and the crew at Genova's, 1021 Washington Road, Newton, in Cedar Village. Our second sponsor is STAND. STAND is a program of Mirror Incorporated that empowers youth to prevent drug and alcohol use in their schools and community. STAND believes in three core principles: leadership, prevention, and empowerment. Through STAND, youth are given opportunities and skills to reduce substance abuse, promote positive mental health, and create significant change in their local school and community. STAND's vision is to mobilize youth passionate about promoting health and resiliency among their peers. Their mission? Empowering teens to impact their school and community in a positive way by reducing substance use and promoting health, hope, and connection. STAND. Our guest today is Brian Skinner. Brian Skinner was born and raised in Clay Center, Kansas. He graduated valedictorian from Clay Center Community High School in 2008, later attending Bethel College in North Newton. Brian graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree of arts and history. He later went on to earn his master's of teaching and learning from Friends University in 2017. I might add that Brian has a rather impressive GPA with not only a 4.0 in high school, followed by a 4.0 in Bethel, and then a 4.0 at Friends, which as a college student, I can only, that's next to impossible. So kudos. Brian started with Newton Public Schools in December 2012 as a substitute teacher. Shortly after hire, he became the interrelated special education high school English teacher. During his time at 373, Brian has also been the high school virtual program instructor. As if you were not busy enough, you also teach as an adjunct instructor of history, adjunct history professor and tutor at Bethel College. In your spare time, as though you have any, you are extremely, and I mean extremely involved with the National Education Association as a member and have served in various leadership positions over time. Honestly, after looking over your resume, trying to do an introduction, it's it's almost impossible to cover everything that you've accomplished and that you've done. I mean, it's a very extensive resume. Thank you. But if everything that I've mentioned isn't enough, there is one awesome distinction that Brian was recently presented with. Brian Skinner, our 373 Brian Skinner, was named the Kansas Teacher of the Year 2023. Good job, Brian.
Thank you.
So welcome to the program, and thanks for coming on to talk to us. I guess just, when I heard about you getting the award, I had never met you personally, maybe we have in passing, I don't know, but not anything like in depth to have built a relationship of any kind. And I read about you, your bio, why, the Teacher of the Year, what that means, and the whole thing. And I was extremely impressed, and I can't say enough. Congratulations. We're very thankful to be, I'm proud Newtonian right now. And, my kids go to public school here at Newton, and that is an awesome distinction, and we are very, as a community, very thankful and lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Just want to say that. And when, You started out in Clay Center, going to high school, doing the high school thing. Did you ever think that you wanted to be a teacher? Was that something that you just kind of knew you wanted to do, or was it something that you found along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Lance, for having me here this morning. I'm really happy to be part of Harvey County Digital Talk. So my family are teachers. So I have a lot of history of teachers in there, but it didn't resonate as something that I was always going to be a teacher as I went through my education path. But I would have to attribute my junior high school history teacher, Miss Laura Pullman. She was the one that really inspired me within my education path, not necessarily towards teaching, but just being invested with education. How she ran her classroom really helped to push each individual to figure out where their strengths were and to move towards their strengths and then move past their strengths. I kind of took that upon myself then through the rest of my high school career into college at Bethel as I started my education program and just kind of moved from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And then so before being a special education teacher, you were, I'm guessing, on the path to be a government teacher for first middle school to high school, correct?
Right.
So you have a certification for government and sociology.
So, social studies.
Social studies, yes. So man after my own heart. That's something that I love and enjoy, obviously. So when you went to school, your intent during that time was to pursue an education to teach government in high school.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ultimately. Okay, so let's go to Bethel, right? You're a 4.0 high school student. Obviously, that affords you the opportunity to get accepted to colleges. You know, about any college you would like to get accepted to, I would just think. Okay, so we're going to make that assumption. Say yes, that's true.
You're right.
Okay, so you go anywhere you wanted to go. Why choose Bethel?
Right. So a couple different veins. So I knew Bethel because I have some family that has gone to Bethel. So I grew up going to Fall Fest that they have every year and just being familiar with the environment. That's one piece that kind of narrows down Bethel. But additionally, I was pretty set that I wanted to attend a smaller college or smaller university just because in high school I was involved in cross country and band and choir. I had a job. I was on the golf team. I did a lot of things. Yeah. I didn't want to go somewhere where I had to choose just one thing. So the appeal of a smaller college that gave me the opportunity to continue doing many things was a really high appeal. So in addition to being familiar with Bethel, I'd done a lot of work with looking at how their academics were, with a lot of discussions with their professors and just figuring out what the academic environment looked like there and what the opportunities I would have were there. And ultimately, I decided that they would best allow me to kind of progress with goals that I had in life.
Was when you were looking, I know graduation rates is something that I look at when I was, choosing to go back to school. But was there some statistics, or were you looking at like job placement after education? So does Bethel have some advantage to say, hey, you come to school here for 4 years and your chances of being placed into? Is there any kind of a mentorship program or anything like that comes with a smaller college?
It'd be really great if I could say that I had the foreknowledge as a senior in high school to be looking at those kinds of things with college, but I wasn't at the forefront. Once I started working at or attending Bethel College, though, and entered their education program, I started learning some statistics about their education program. Okay. Bethel has one of the top education programs in the state of Kansas, which was really, really appealing. But also, they had an exceptionally high acceptance rate of those that graduated from Bethel with an education degree and being able to get placements as teachers. They have, I believe, the highest rate in the state for education students passing the praxis, which is the teacher licensure exam.
Okay. Very good. Yes. So you're selling Bethel College to anybody listening right now.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because, like in my personal life, I was not too long ago in the market for looking at colleges that, well, which college would I like to attend and why, and some have their strengths here and others there, and a lot of times I would say people overlook these smaller colleges, these private colleges, and I don't know if it's because necessarily tuition's more expensive or whatever, but just looking at my education and what I go into Wichita State University with how the dynamics are set around that education versus maybe what you were afforded at Bethel, that's an interesting takeaway to say that to really have students that are looking for a good educational experience to look at some place like Bethel while they're looking at Wichita State. And it's very possible that if you knew they were there, you might pick them. So I could have been a thresher. I'm a shocker, but I could have been a thresher. It's possible. Anywho, so you're graduating from college. You've looking for a job. Why was there something particular about wanting to stay in Newton? I mean, there's a lot of schools around here. You could have gone and applied to multiple different schools, I'm sure, and done probably had. I kind of view you as somebody that could have a pick of a job. You know, like I look at your stuff, and if I was an employer, I would look at you and go, wow, you know, if I was Andover, I would want to have you. If I was Wichita, I would want to have you. If I was Newton, I'd want to have you. So you get to pick. Why pick Newton?
Right. So at some point as I was ending Bethel's career, people would start asking me all the time, where are you going to work? What are you going to do? And my answer to that always varied. But at the time, one thing that I always seemed to tack on at the end was, I doubt I stay in Newton though. Just because in my mind, I was like, I've always lived here. I've lived it. I've been in Kansas. I'm going to go elsewhere. Yeah. That was all prior to me actually starting my student teaching at Newton High School with Newton School District. And at some point along the line through that student teaching process, it shifted and my answer stopped being having that little tag along of, well, I probably won't stay here, because I just felt really comfortable in Newton schools. I just really loved the interactions that I had with staff. It was a supportive environment, and it was an environment that I could see myself working. So as I finished my student teaching, not only did I start looking for job placement within Newton schools, I also started looking for housing within the Newton area. So yeah, when you look at the idea that I could have gone a lot of other places, I considered at one point until I really became experienced with what Newton had to offer, and that was my draw. That was why I stayed. That's why I'm still here.
That's interesting. So I want to touch on that a little bit more. You're a transplant, right? So you have life experience some other place. Ideally, it's Kansas, so it's kind of the same. It's not California,
Right.
but you're experiencing this. You've gone to college here in the community. You've spent some years here. You do your student teaching, and then your overall experience was what? Very welcoming community. Very. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but could you go into a little bit more detail? So for people that are listening, that are like, man, that's the teacher of the year. That's something to aspire to be, right? So,
Right.
So if I'm a teacher and I'm looking for a place to go and teach, you have promoted Newton so far. You've promoted Bethel so far, USD. But go into a little bit more detail of how you felt like you were in the right place. Like maybe if a teacher was looking for a job in a good school system, what would you tell them? What would be your reference?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I focus on with teaching is that when you're educating students, you want to try and find the possibilities and the opportunities that they can have and help them unlock so that they can figure out where their potential is. Newton has all of those possibilities and opportunities then for the staff side as well. I am a firm believer that if an educator wants to appreciate the profession that they've chosen and make it more than just a clock in, clock out kind of job, they should be more involved. The same way that if a student is more invested in just going to school and then going home, they're going to be more likely to graduate. Newton has so many opportunities for staff to be involved in the community. We have 40 or 50 different clubs. We have every sport offered or sanctioned by CASHA. We have a wonderful CTE program. We have an alternative school. We have so many community partnerships. Like if a staff member is wanting to be involved, it doesn't matter where their interests are. They have that ability to be involved, and that's something that adds to a community in a school district.
So you can come here, and if you're wanting to invest, you can invest, and there's a place to nurture you and be able to have you be better, and then be able to invest more in the future. It's interesting. I like that you said that. Okay, so I was reading about you, okay? And this was a quote that was taken from the 2023 Kansas Teacher of the Year biography. Okay? It says, within USD 373, Skinner is a leader. He started and expanded co-teaching in Newton's high school's English department in 2017, has been Newton's Scholars Bowl coach since 2015, and has served as a concessions manager since 2014. Skinner is also on the building leadership team, Newton's site council, and serves as chair for Newton's freshman success team. Skinner says, and I quote, working with students across such a wide spectrum helps you to understand all students and have a larger impact in helping and building a positive school culture. When people come on, I if I haven't met you, I want to know you. So I try to read about you, obviously. And I read this and I was like, man, that's pretty profound. And, coupled with your resume and everything that you're involved in, I guess my question is there's a lot happening here with you. Okay. So why? What is it? I mean, you made the comment that you want to be involved. That's what you do. You don't have downtime. It's not something that you're about. I understand that personally, but it's just time and time again. You're just plugging away relentlessly. Okay, value, service, all of the above. So you could just be a teacher. You could just be the Scholars Bowl. You could just do this or all this, but you're doing all of this. So what's the why behind it?
Right. I like to interact with other individuals. It's one of the draws that I had to teaching. I like to be able to help people learn, help people grow. I like to, if I were to sit at a job where I just didn't interact with people and it was a desk job, that would not be me. That is a lot of people's strength. That is not my strength. Yeah. And whatever I do, it's always been kind of the back of the mind that I want to do it completely. I want to do it with everything I've got. And the more that I find that I invest in what I'm doing, it's not the more worn down or more tired or busier that I am. It's the more content I feel with the impact that I'm able to have. I enjoy working with all different types of students. People talk about teacher burnout, and a lot of people think that if you're too busy, you're edging towards burnout. I would take a different approach, and I would say if you're too narrow focused, that's where you're going to run into the burnout. I don't just teach my special education classes. I interact with my Scholars Bowl students on a different end of the spectrum. I interact with concessions, students that do concessions, which is another group within the high school. I work with clubs that expand to another group of the high school. I find that the way to avoid some of that burnout even is to make sure that you're diverse enough with what you're doing within your job so that each day looks different and it doesn't become mundane, it doesn't become repetitive, and you get to interact with everybody.
I'd say that's very, very, very profound. I don't know. Man, we're going to talk to you like that. I see a lot of parallels, and so it's almost like you're bringing something out in me, because it's very profound that your association with burnout is connected to repetition of duties. So it's not necessarily that you're spending X amount of time, which might seem like a lot, doing things. It's that you're not doing the same thing consistently over and over and over for that period of time. So your belief is that burnout needs to be, and I'm going to put these words in your mouth, that burnout could be looked at differently, to say that, yes, if you are teaching the same math class 10 hours a day for the next 40 years, you are going to be burnt out in teaching that same math class, even if the interchange of the students are there. But if you're not just teaching the math class, you're also teaching this other class, you're also being involved in this other way, that then that burnout is not there, or less likely, because you're being you're separating yourself over so many different variety of things. Agreed? Or no? Or
That's absolutely fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that way to look at it, because I was talking to you before the show or whatever, and I said a lot of people that I'm interviewing are high achievers. A lot of people consider myself high achiever, me a high achiever, and I don't necessarily understand that concept. Maybe it's because I run with that group. But burnout is something that a lot of people in our field, you could say, experience, where they're just so involved for so long with so much that they're just like have no time for themselves. They haven't filled themselves back up, and they have no more energy to give. But what you're saying is that by doing all of that, maybe just changing up.
Right, changing it up. And there is a fine line between having too much on your plate. I'm not trying to minimize the amount of work that teachers have and the overwhelming piece that can be, but just the idea, I think for me, it helps that each day looks different, and that energizes me, and it keeps me from being bored, and that reduces some of what's on my plate, so to speak. And yeah.
I like that. What has been the biggest challenge you faced since becoming a teacher?
It's a big question. Biggest challenge I faced probably would be apathy, just across the board. Whenever I encounter that, apathy is not something that I experience personally, and so when I am working with a colleague or a student or a parent that just doesn't seem to have the care or the want, it's really difficult for me to approach that in a way that presumes still the positive intention. So I think I've spent probably more hours than anything else trying to just work through my mind, how can I combat apathy at whatever level when I encounter it? And that's not just within teaching, that's just in life in general. When I interact with people, it's difficult for me to work with someone that doesn't care, doesn't want to, doesn't believe, because I believe everyone is capable of being successful. And when they don't have that want within themselves, I like to try and find a way to fix that, work with that.
Yeah, like how can you just not care? You know, that's a tough one for people that care. So since you've said the biggest challenge, then the opposite of that, what's been the most enjoyable or memorable thing, or maybe it's one situation or something about being a teacher?
Right. And the obvious response is when you see growth within a student in the classroom. But for me, the things that are most memorable are the interactions after a student has left high school. I've received some letters from students that I no longer have in school. I have had students that have come back to the high school after graduation to see if they can have lunch with me during my lunch hour. I had a student then that asked me to go to the hospital when his son was born. Just like some of those things, once they've graduated, if they don't ever want to interact with me again, they don't have to. There's no grade that can be attached. There's no assignment. There's no attendance obligation. So when a student chooses to interact with me, I feel like that represents an impact that I had, and that for me is meaningful, and it, again, energizes me to keep coming back each day.
Yeah. Did you ever think when you became a teacher, you said she had some teachers in your family, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you saw their life and their teaching and the product of that, whatever fruits they bared from that.
Right.
Whether that be a teacher that was 20 years ago, you were my high school teacher, and hey, Mr. So-and-so, you know, and you weren't even born when this happened, right? If it was a parent. But just the idea, did you ever think that would be part of the fruits that you're experiencing from investing in teaching, where like this kid or this student literally wants me to come up here? I made an impact on that person's life that they want me to come up here and be here on like the most important day of their life.
Right.
You know?
No,
you're like, wow, okay, yeah, let me, you know.
It was not something that I foresaw before I came into the teaching profession. It's really hard for someone that is not in the education profession to understand all of the ins and outs and the benefits that come with education and being a teacher. So I had an idea of what I thought the positives were of being an educator, but they were not what it turned out to be. Yeah. It's just hard to predict that.
The real world impact in your life and what it teaches you about you. Even,
right. You can't learn that in a textbook.
No, that's very good. Okay. So as a teacher, and you know, you sold USD 373 on me and everybody else. Okay. I can say that. I'm very supportive of my school. So what do you think is 373's biggest challenge right now?
Right. So I would take that and look at not necessarily what do I think USD 373's biggest challenge is, but what do I think a challenge in education is across the board. I don't think it's unique to just USD 373. And that would be social media and its impact. Technology has done wonderful things. Technology is what allows me to be on this podcast here this morning. But technology can also have a side to it that can be really detrimental. I actually had to address what I felt like one of the biggest struggles within education was as part of the process to be Kansas Teacher of the Year, and this was a topic that I had selected. Social media has the ability to dysregulate students socially and emotionally so quickly. just with a lot of the addictive qualities that the algorithm behind social media can have. And I think it is something that society as a whole, this isn't even specific to the education profession, but it hits the education profession, I think, the most, because we are the ones that interact with youth the most. That algorithm capitalizes on developing brains and their ability, or rather their inability, to be able to separate an instant gratification or to separate a dopamine release that they get with the likes or the lack of likes. And if you can't be socially and emotionally regulated and stable within a classroom, well, forget about academics, because that's not going to be there either.
Yeah. Wow, you hit on a subject that's, I think, could lead into the next question in a way, but I just want to sit here for a second on this. I was thinking of something that I would respond to at the first part of what you were saying, and then it got real cryptic. And I mean, for me, the way I look at it, because first we talk about apathy and the struggle there, but then we talk about developing minds, and then we talk about a multi-million, billion maybe dollar industry that specifically targets youth, and then we have these issues of bullying and cyberbullying and this whole package. But it's interesting that you say that technology is good because it allows us more tools in our toolbox to do things.
Absolutely.
But just like any tool, I mean, you can either use a hammer for its purpose or something to get something accomplished, or it could just be warrantless, nonsense. And one thing with my kids, and I'm responsible for a slew of them, but I just sometimes they'll have something on YouTube or something, and I'll just be like, why are you watching this? Stupid. I mean, it's unbelievable how dumb this is, and turn on something different. And my frustration is you can get on anything and you can find out a biography on dang near anybody, and you can listen or read or learn about anything in history you want, or it's at your fingertips, anything you want to know. And this is what we resolved to, that more people want to watch this. And I'm just like, oh, I can't believe it. And then the way that does impact the brain development of our youth and stuff. And, but yeah, good luck trying to stop that.
Right. No, if I can stop that, then that would be wonderful. I would just drop the mic and just walk away.
Yeah. And it's difficult, but you see something from a perspective that most people don't. I mean, I see this kind of stuff happen in my own children's lives, right? So I deal with it on a micro level. But you deal with it on a very macro level because you're dealing with it in everybody's children's lives. So it's like everybody's kids are dealing with this. And then the way that impacts their development moving forward, and you're just dealing with this plastic situation. Right.
And it's so much more even than just the social and emotional piece even. I mean, that's one of the biggest components I see. But all the majority of these social media videos that scroll through, they're designed to be 3 minutes or less in time. So if you watch 50 of these every day, your brain is being trained that is your attention span. And if anything goes longer than 3 minutes, your brain turns off, and that makes it hard to make growth towards anything that isn't that instant gratification in the same vein.
Yeah, at that pivotal point in which their brain is developing, where they can understand the whole thing. It's like totally counterproductive. Well, so what does I guess excluding that, because that could be a very cryptic and dismal projection of the future. But what does the future of education look like to you? And I want to say this: I hope and pray that whoever is in this selection process of who the teacher of the year is, or the principal, these people, that you really ask them for the direction that you believe that they can contribute to make a better future for our children. And so that's kind of where I'm asking this question is, as you are the teacher of the year 2023. Okay. That's a big deal, right? And when you're talking about how that plays into education as a whole, especially in the state of Kansas, what does the future of education look like to you?
Right. Despite what I said previously, I think that the future has a lot of really strong positives. Particularly given the specific time where we're at. So we have just been through these last 2 years that have been really difficult with dealing with an international pandemic. Yeah. And there are a lot of negatives with that, very clearly. But I think that these past couple years have allowed us to highlight some of the flaws that we might have had within the education system, that in a way that we have the ability to address them in a most appropriate way so that we can reach all students. Having to do so many things remotely helped highlight students that were falling through the cracks, and teaching methods, practices within the school system that didn't work for everybody. They work for your high achievers. They work for the vast majority, but they don't work for those students that are at most risk. And we saw that very clearly. I think that what I hope to see out of this and where education builds is that differentiation as a whole becomes stronger, and that in turn helps unlock the way that students believe that they can be successful even more, so that we can have a larger success now than we did 3 years ago before everything happened.
What I believe you to have just said is that the positive that came out of this negative is that we will have and focus more on individualized teaching for students.
Yes.
So where we used to do the blanket method and everybody got taught the same thing, because of COVID, pandemic, whatever, we wind up in a situation where it changes how we can administer, this information through our education system. And by doing that, because there was that, you're saying that it highlighted many areas where it can produce or hopefully lead us in the direction to focus on more individualized testing for students, individualized education. Correct?
Right. And not that everyone was blanket teaching before COVID, because there's a lot of great teaching and a lot of differentiation that happens, but I think it highlighted what more we can do and what population within the very teaching we were doing we were still missing. So
very good. In your opinion, what has been the best thing about being a teacher in general, and then also for USD 373? So a two-part question.
Right. Best thing about being a teacher is I get to interact with people every day. If I had to go lots of days without interacting with individuals, I think that would be something that would be a little bit soul crushing for me. So whether it's the colleague interactions or student interactions, that's a highlight of my day pretty much always. And with USD 373 specifically, if I could hone that down further, it's the people that are within USD 373. I mean, you're going to hear people that talk about issues they may have within their school district or whatever it is, anywhere you go. And USD 373 is no different. I mean, no school district is perfect, but what I've had the opportunity to travel to a lot of different school districts of late, and not to say anything negative about them, but it makes me appreciate even more the people that we have at USD 373. So,
because it's about the people.
Yeah,
it's about the students and about the people.
Connections and relationships are everything.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up. As any other program, if you've seen, I always give the guest the last word. So you can say anything you want. You get to speak directly to the hearts and minds of everybody in Newton, Harvey County, in the greater area. What do you got for us, Brian?
Well, I just want to thank you again for having me on here this morning. Anytime that I can speak and promote public education, that's something that I'm always going to try to do. I think it's a pivotal part of any profession, being able to educate the next generation as it comes on. What I hope to be able to emphasize throughout this year is to be able to help as many other educators as I can across the state to better look at building those connections, those relationships, building them within whatever community, district, or school that they work, and unlock the possibilities and the opportunities that are present for them. They can be wide-ranging. It doesn't have to be just one thing. And I hope at the end of this year, I've connected with enough other individuals that even more lives can be impacted for the better. Because at the end of the day, education is about impacting a life for the better, which is the future of what we've got coming. So,
well, thank you. And I just was going to say, don't go anywhere. Please don't go anywhere with your newfound fame that you have. I'm sure that you probably could. And I just hope that we are able to retain you, so you can keep doing what you're doing here for us and our kids. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks, and thanks for listening to this week's program. Good day, good night, or good riddance. Either way, we hope to catch you next time. Tune in or tune out.